Here tonight. I was a rapid fire reader in 2019 in the before times at volumes, and then I've just been in the audience a couple of other times. And this is my first time getting to come and be a featured reader, so I won't give too much preamble before I read to you from I Made It Out of Play, my book that just came out in December. This is a golem story, so I think monster is getting into speculative fiction. I can tell you that some folks thought that it was going to be a straight up romance, and never piss off romance fans. They're scarier than the demons that you were reading about earlier. And I respect that genre, and you have to. There's a romance mafia, so it's not really a romance. As I say, it has some rom, it has some com, it has some love. So I'm going to read from a couple different portions tonight, so you get a little bit of a sense of this is very much a slice of life story that is more than anything actually about grief and finding your way back to yourself. And sometimes it's easier to tackle those topics with a monster. So first I'm going to read from early on in the book was just to introduce our main character Eve and some of the very real world things stressing her out soon after she lost her father. There's a meeting at 9, Sasha says. All staff, email went out at 8:30. Seriously, how do you not keep up with your email while you're on the train? What's the meeting? I ask, sidestepping her question. I don't want her giving me any more static about how much I still avoid my phone since losing Dad. Something big, something someone from corporate flew in for. What? Why? Corporate means New York. The Chicago office of Mercer & Mercer occupies 2 full floors of the August building, a sleek office complex near Merchandise Mart. We look like a behemoth, but we're just a satellite. The hallowed Mercer & Mercer headquarters is in Manhattan and has a much larger footprint. They only send someone to Chicago when there's a huge client pitch or bad news to deliver. We aren't prepping any huge new pitches this close to year's end. We're just in maintenance mode before we dim the lights from Christmas through New Year's, which means this is a bad news visit. Not sure, Sasha says, can't be good. Maybe we're all getting bonuses? I say hopefully. No one has gotten a bonus in 5 years, thanks to a few little things like, pandemics and global supply chain shortages, and the world generally being a dumpster fire all of the time. The whole company was going to continue indefinitely tightening the proverbial belt while celebrating every success, as the corporate office said in a cliched email to the whole company recently. Apparently, even though the world was back to normal, whatever that means, most employers retained a general sense of impending fiscal doom and don't feel generous. Yeah, right, Sasha says flatly, waving my words away and killing my optimism with a flick of her slender wrist. If anything, it's going to be cuts. All the managers are losing their shit trying to get their teams in on time. Creatives, as a rule, are not known for their punctuality. Technically, Mercer & Mercer opens at 8:30, but only the admin team is ever there that early. Those of us on the creative and account side who really want to be taken seriously, like Sasha and me, are there by 9. But a lot of the graphic designers and web folks don't roll until closer to 10. Is Brian in yet? I ask, nervous. Brian Walsh-Alvarez is the 3rd musketeer in Sasha's and my small social circle at work. He's a couple years younger than we are, which he never lets us forget. He's also the only one of us who's married. His husband, Carlos, is a doctor, which is another thing that Brian makes sure to mention approximately every 5 minutes. Brian's life and finances are secure, even if he were to suddenly find himself unemployed, which is one of the many reasons he's more lax about getting to work on time. Legal weed now being readily available at a dispensary in his building doesn't help either. Actually, yes, Sasha says. Just got the heads up last night, and Julie texted him at 2 in the morning. Thank God Brian's creative director likes him so much and knew to text him at 2 in the morning when he would still be out playing video games. Come on, Sasha says, as if I'm dogging. I'm not, but I am struggling to keep up because my long-legged friend hasn't let up the pace for a single second. We're practically running up the sidewalk, our breath coming out in chilled puffs, hard and fast. Have I always been this out of shape? Do you think there will be bagels at the meeting? I ask. No, says Sasha. Killjoy? I pant, by now sweaty and freezing at the same time. Are you sure you don't want my coat? No, I want you to hurry your ass inside, Sasha says, stepping up the pace even more. 3 minutes later, at 9 on the dot, we're squeezing ourselves into the conference room on the 5th floor. Thankfully, the elevator doors were opening just as we made it inside the building. Sasha and I flatten ourselves against the wall just as a slick businessman in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent clears his throat, leans over, and raps 3 times on the table. Everyone flinches. Straightening up again, the suit smiles and steeples his fingers in front of his chest like he's about to announce his plan stopped the Batman. His white hair is buzzed military short on the sides, oddly gelled and spiked up on top. He's in his 70s, so he would have been much too old for frosted tips in the 90s, but I think he probably had them anyway. Across the room, Brian catches my eye. His freckled face is pallid, his reddish hair and button-down shirt rumpled. I self-consciously smooth my own dark curls and give him a sympathetic look. Brian is unaccustomed to waking before 9, let alone being at work by then. Welcome to hell, Brian mouths. For real? Where? The Eagles, I nod back, and he struggles to hold back a snort. Thank you for all meeting here on such short notice, says the suit. He speaks quickly but inefficiently, repeating certain words and phrases in a way that sets my teeth on edge. I'm Barry Ellis from the New York office. East Coast team sends their best, as always. All right, let's get to the chase. Not much of an opener. Summer was a strong quarter. Nice work. Good numbers, that's what we like to see. Well done, he says with a bland cat-toothed smile too big for his tanned face. He looks like someone who just lost a Senate race and refused to concede. Well done, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Q3 was rough and Q4 is looking worse. We might lose the Java low account. I'm not saying we will, but we might. Hit the Java low account. This makes everyone shift nervously in their seats. The low buzz of anxiety coming louder through the room. Java has been one of our biggest clients for a year, a coffee company that most people on the street couldn't name, but whose industrial coffee makers were in basically every restaurant, office building, and wealthy private kitchen in North America. Brian is the lead designer. He shoots me a nervous look. I give him what I hope is a reassuring nod, but probably looks more like a random twitch. So what we want to do is see some real energy this month, says Barry with a loud clap that makes one of the interns yelp aloud and quickly try to cover it with a coughing fit. Some real energy. I know it's the holidays and blah, 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 but this isn't the time to slack off. It's the time to double down, show them what we're made of, and consider that we'll be looking at hours and impact if we have to make some tough calls in the new year, if not before. Jesus, Sasha says under her breath. Trying to fire people right before the holidays? I shake my head, mouth dry. All right, so, Barry says, looking around the room like a shark deciding what fish to rip through first. Any questions? The room is clearly full of questions, but no one's going to open their mouths to ask one. Ryan mouths a silent one to me. What the actual hell? Barry nods, satisfied. Like by keeping our mouths shut, we got the answer right. Good, he says. He claps his hands again, grinning that artificial grin. Good. All right, back to it then, team, and hey, Merry Christmas. So now I'm going to skip ahead to the only flashback scene in the book. Things have gotten, we'll just say, progressively worse since that morning at Eve's office. And now she is recalling the night that her immigrant grandmother told her about a creature from lore. It was 1997. I was 13, braces on my teeth, hair an uncontrolled cloud of dark, puffy curls. At this tender age, I was somehow considered a woman by my people. I had just celebrated my bat mitzvah, but I didn't feel like a woman. I felt like a child, an awkward child. I recently had to move out of my room into my little sister Rosie's room so that my grandmother could have the space that used to be mine. I hated sharing a room with 7-year-old Rosie, but I was fascinated, excited, and a little terrified to have Bubby living with us. She moved in the week before Thanksgiving, so by the time Hanukkah rolled around, we'd all had a little bit of time to adjust. My father was polite and respectful to his mother-in-law. In spite of the fact that with my parents, Bubby was difficult. Her mood often sour, her tone sharp. But with Rosie and me, she softened. We were her bubbles, her little dolls. She adored us. She would do anything for us. The first night of Hanukkah, I had the privilege of lighting the candles. We sang the blessings together. Happy Hanukkah, Mom said, clapping her hands merrily. Time for presents. David, help me with the big ones. My parents exited the room. Rosie, eager for present, grabbed a dreidel and sat on the floor, spinning one to distract herself until our parents returned. She was humming the old tune. I have a little dreidel. Bubby's eyes were fixed on the flickering flames. But then she turned toward me. You know, Bubble, she said in her thick Yiddish accent. Hanukkah isn't really about presents. I nodded solemnly, even though I was pretty sure that Hanukkah was mostly about presents. Bubby's face was lined and solemn. Bubby, I said softly, if it's not about presents, what is Hanukkah about? winced as soon as I asked the question, feeling silly for asking such a stupid thing. I learned all about it in Hebrew school, right? Something about Maccabees, a fight for religious freedom, victory over oppressors, blah, blah, blah. And then the lamp. There was the rekindling of the lamp. It was supposed to only last a day. It lasted 8 days. Oh, now I'm worried that Bubby wouldn't think I'd paid any attention at all to my Hebrew school education, which, to be fair, I mostly hadn't. But I did remember some of the Hanukkah stuff. To my surprise, though, her answer mentioned neither Maccabees nor miracles. Survival, she said, her voice sharp and sure. Hanukkah is about survival. Oh, I said. Not just Hanukkah, Bubby continued, and for once, she didn't slip me a snack as she offered me her words. We are about survival. Every holiday we celebrate, every story we tell, our people, our history, is all survival. That's what we do, below. We survive. Never forget that. Yes, Bubby, I promised. I shivered a little because she was doing that thing she did where she started to scare me by making things too real. When she alluded to all the darkness she'd been through, I could practically see the demons of her past slipping out of the shadows, catching hold of her, threatening to reach out and grab me too. Most of the time, when she edged toward this darkness, my obvious discomfort would pull her back. She would see the fear in my eyes, hate that she put it there, and stop talking. Or at the very least, she would change the subject, tell me to run along, to spare me, to let me bask in my innocence for as long as possible. But not that night. Then they were coming for my family, Bubby said, her voice so low I could barely hear it. I had to do something. I had to make sure he survived. I knew what was being done to people. I knew we might be killed. And I was only one small girl, only a little older than you are now. But I had to do something, to save myself, even if I couldn't save everyone else. That's when I remembered the legend of the golem. Her voice lowered when she said the word, shaded with something like reverence. I didn't know what the word meant, but it made me feel cold. I blinked, shivering harder, wanting to hear whatever story Bobby was about to tell, but also dreading it. The candles were dancing lower now, and my mother had turned out the overhead lights before we lit them. Shadows stretched across the room. What was the golem? I couldn't form the words, but I didn't need to. A man, she whispered, but not a man. More than a man, and less than one. A creature made from earth, from dust, from clay, from desperation. He has a word on his head. Aleph, Mem, Tav. She lifted a finger into the air, adorned with the emerald ring she always wore. It glinted darkly in the flickering candlelight. She traced the outline of each letter, finger trembling slightly. Aleph, Mem, Tav. Ament, she said. It means truth. And as long as truth is on his brow, the golem will keep his people safe. And then he's not needed. We simply erase the Aleph. She drew her palm through the air as if wiping something away, and my tongue went dry. Then you erase the Aleph. That leaves Mem and Tav, which spells met, death. But taking him from truth to death, it doesn't kill our golem. It just lets him rest, tells him to be patient, to wait until we meet him again. You mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, but she shook her head. I would have, she said. I should have, I tried, but before I could, they came for us. They came for us. I felt the words in my bones. Bubby, I said, shuddering and wanting comfort, hoping she could make this thick knot of terror in my stomach dissolve by winking and telling me she was just joking. It's just a story though, right? It's not real, it's just a story. Just a story, she repeated, shaking her head. She was looking past me, the flickering lights of the candles snapping fire in her dark eyes. As if stories are not the most powerful things we have. Presents! My parents burst into the room, turning on the overhead light, flooding the room with too much brightness and cheer all at once. Rosie squealed with delight, but I just sat frozen, staring at my grandmother, whose eyes were on the steadily declining candles. Feast and alive, she whispered once more. Or maybe I just imagined it. Right after inventing or reviving, bringing back the golem, so we get to have a little bit of the golem flavor, which starts out funny and then mudslides into something a little darker. Do you want a coffee? I look up at the man, golem, creature, figment of my imagination, but somehow my neighbor can also hear whatever he is, and gesture toward the walk-up window at a trendy little new coffee dive called The Other Chicago Bean. He looks at me curiously, uncomprehending. Clearly, we couldn't leave my apartment with him wearing my purple robe, so I hastily ransacked my room and managed to find some scrub pants I'd stolen from an ex-boyfriend in my 20s. I can't remember who it was, but those magical one-size-fits-most scrubs were well worth whatever crappy breakup they came from. I'd also dug out an oversized t-shirt from the one and only 5K I ever ran, with a shoddy screen print from the Chicago skyline jutting up beneath the words Lakeshore Drive, Feel Alive, 5K. So the golem does have on pants and a shirt. But then I look down and see his large bare feet. There's literally nowhere I could take him if he's shuffling around barefoot. Thinking fast, I grab my flip-flops out of the shower. They've always been too big for me. And yes, they're a terrible December footwear choice, but that has never stopped Midwestern bros from exposing their toes all winter long. And I'm guessing the cold won't bother a golem much. Not that he's actually a golem, some part of my mind still insists. In my front hall closet, I managed to scrounge up a men's winter coat someone left at my place after a party back when I used to throw parties. I also try to put a knit cap on him, but it doesn't go low enough to cover the letters on his forehead. I have to find a way to cover the olive lemon top, even in Chicago, where body art is celebrated and interesting ink is no big deal. Ancient Hebrew script tattooed directly across the brow might draw some stares. I grabbed my father's old Cubs baseball hat, the one he gave me when I left for college, and shoved it over the creature's thick mop of brown hair. The handsome golem blinks down at me now, from beneath the pulled low bill, awaiting further explanation. Coffee, I say, louder and slower. Do you know what that is? He shakes his head. No. His attractiveness is almost cinematic. There's something about the strong but lean build, the intense expression in his eyes. It's sort of like the first time I saw Clueless and Cher Horowitz's insanely hot stepbrother enter the scene. A young Paul Rudd, ageless before he was officially ageless. God, that movie is such a perfect preservation of the 90s. The outfits, the plaid, the suspenders, the mini skirts, the boas, the Valley Girl intonation. My thoughts are pinwheeling so ludicrously, I almost burst out laughing because I'm officially losing my mind. This can't be happening. I can't be standing here outside my favorite local coffee shop thinking about my favorite 90s movie while I buy a coffee for the golem that I made out of some clay from my apartment's creepy basement. You putting it in order or not? The barista at the walk-up window gives me a pointed look. Jane, I think, might be the barista's name. They sometimes host the poetry open mic nights at the coffee shop, which I used to go to now and then. Jane has short green hair and star tattoos running from their collarbone up their neck, looping around their left ear. 3 small silver hoops dangle in a way that only artists and baristas can really pull off. The trio of hoops in their raised eyebrow adds a powerful indictment to their stare. And you know, fair enough, there's a line forming behind me, commuters who need their caffeine fix before they catch a train downtown. Same train I need to catch as soon as possible. Yeah, okay, I say quickly, stepping up to the counter and pulling out a 10. 1 peppermint mocha, 1 regular coffee. We don't do peppermint mochas, says Jade with such ire that I almost apologize. Oh, just a regular latte and a coffee, I say. For the latte, you want soy milk, oat, almond, just regular cow milk, it's fine. You want cow milk, Jade says reluctantly. At this, I vaguely remember them wearing a shirt that screamed, "The future is vegan!" The last time I was in the shop, I winced, and I wish I'd gone with oat milk so I wouldn't seem like the asshole who was not only holding up the line, but also exploiting the animals. But it's 50 cents extra for oat milk, and the lattes at the other Chicago Bean are already so overpriced, and also, like, I fucking hate oat milk. Behind me, I can feel the golem tense. He takes a step forward, looming over me. Jade, ever nonplussed, looks up. Their eyes do widen slightly at the intimidating presence towering over them. "Yup, right," I say, smiling brightly. "Cow milk." Name for the cups. Jade asks, eyes still on the golem. Eve, I say. And let me guess, Jade says, regaining a little of their edge as they nod up toward my supernatural bodyguard. This is Adam. I interject before the golem can growl. No, this is Paul, I say, the name tumbling from my mouth before I even know what I'm saying. Paul Mudd.